Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. Carney's Liberals are projected to win the Canadian election and seal a remarkable comeback. The White House says US President Donald Trump wants a permanent ceasefire in Ukraine. Power has gradually been restored in Spain and Portugal after a major blackout. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney is on track to win the federal election, according to early projections. His Liberal Party is leading after a campaign dominated by US President Donald Trump's threats and economic pressure. However, it remains unclear whether the Liberals will form a majority or minority government.
Millions of Canadians went to the polls on Monday in an election heavily influenced by US tariffs and President Donald Trump's controversial call for Canada to become the 51st American state. Voting officially ended across the country, from the Atlantic provinces to British Columbia, and counting quickly got underway.
All of you, Canada, get ready. Our CBC News...
Early results showed the Liberals leading in 90 seats, while the Conservatives were ahead in 64. A majority government requires winning 172 of the 343 seats in Parliament.
It is not yet clear at this hour.
The election marked a major comeback for the Liberals, who earlier this year had trailed the Conservatives by as much as 20 points. That changed following Justin Trudeau's resignation and Trump's intervention, which shifted the political landscape. Mark Carney, a political newcomer but internationally respected economist, became Prime Minister in March after succeeding Trudeau. He campaigned on promises of taking a tougher stance toward Washington and reducing Canada's economic dependence on the US, asking voters for a strong mandate. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre focused his campaign on domestic issues such as the rising cost of living and crime, arguing that after 9 years of Liberal rule, Canada was broken. At the time, Parliament was dissolved. The Liberals held 152 seats, the Conservatives 120, the Bloc Québécois 33, the New Democrats 24, and the Greens 2. More than 7 million Canadians voted early, setting a record for advanced turnout. However, final results could take longer to confirm, especially in key battlegrounds such as Ontario's 905 region and British Columbia, where polls closed later. Whether the Liberals secure an outright majority or must govern as a minority will depend heavily on these late results.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared a unilateral 3-day ceasefire in May in the ongoing war with Ukraine. The announcement comes as the White House has confirmed that US President Donald Trump is pushing for a permanent end to the conflict. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said on Monday that the president believes now is the time to stop the fighting for good.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
The Kremlin declared a new unilateral ceasefire. Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking at a meeting of the Council of Legislators in St. Petersburg, said that the 72-hour truce is set to begin at the start of 8th May and run until the end of 10th May. This date marks the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory alongside its allies in World War II. It follows an earlier, short-lived Easter ceasefire, which both sides accused each other of repeatedly violating. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha responded, saying Ukraine is ready to support a lasting, durable and full ceasefire. However, he stressed that if Russia truly wants peace, it should immediately halt its ongoing attacks. Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesman Georgy Tykhy stated that if Russia truly seeks peace, it should cease fire immediately.
Why wait until May 8th? If the fire can be ceased now, and since any date for 30 days, so it is a real ceasefire, not just one for a parade. And Ukraine is ready to support a lasting, durable and full ceasefire. of course, Ukraine's position is consistent, and we think that Moscow needs to be asked why they do not reciprocate the Ukrainian proposal, the Ukrainian acceptance of a full ceasefire, because if they accepted it, it could have already started, and we would have silence and, of course, some confidence-building measures, as Minister Sibiha repeats clearly many times, and this would pave the way to a real long-term settlement.
US President Donald Trump wants to see a permanent ceasefire to ending Russia's war in Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said,
He is increasingly frustrated with leaders of both countries. He wants to see a permanent ceasefire. I understand Vladimir Putin this morning offered a temporary ceasefire. The president has made it clear he wants to see a permanent ceasefire, first to stop the killing, stop the bloodshed. And while he remains optimistic he can strike a deal, he's also being realistic as well.
As of now, there are no signs of formal negotiations linked to the newly announced ceasefire, and the situation along the front lines remains tense.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday that the world did not wait till the 8th of May for the Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin's announced ceasefire in more than the 3-year-old war, only to be in effect for a few days. In his nightly address, Zelensky called for a full and unconditional ceasefire for at least 30 days to provide a basis for real diplomacy. Zelensky also said that an agreement with the United States on developing Ukraine's minerals had become stronger, more equitable after negotiations between the two sides. Power is gradually coming back across Spain and Portugal after a massive blackout triggered widespread disruption on Monday. While electricity has returned to many areas, the cause of the outage remains unclear as investigations continue.
Electricity supplies are slowly returning across parts of Spain and Portugal after a major, unprecedented blackout caused widespread chaos on Monday. The outage disrupted daily life for tens of millions of people across the Iberian Peninsula, halting subway trains, paralysing traffic systems, severing phone and internet connections, and shutting down ATM machines. By early Tuesday, over 87% of power had been restored in Spain, with all affected substations back online as residents cheered the return of electricity. Spain's Interior Ministry declared a state of emergency in several regions, including Madrid and parts of the south. Portugal's Prime Minister Luis Montenegro, following a late-night emergency cabinet meeting, declared an energy crisis. The outage disrupted key institutions like Spain's Parliament and the Madrid Open, while essential services in Portugal relied on backup generators. Police were deployed to manage traffic in cities where lights failed. Still, it remains unclear exactly what triggered the failure. Some reports linked the blackout to a rare, induced atmosphere vibration affecting Spain's power lines, but REN later denied these claims. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who visited Red Electrica's headquarters during recovery efforts, reiterated that there was no indication of a cyber attack and that the issue did not originate in Portugal.
What has caused this sudden disappearance of supply? This is something that specialists have not yet been able to determine, but they will. And the relevant state institutions and all private operators are working together to understand what has happened. All potential causes are being analysed. I insist again, without ruling out any hypothesis, any possibility.
Though the total number affected remains unclear, the blackout is one of the most severe to hit the Iberian Peninsula, home to around 60 million people. The full investigation into the origin of the outage remains ongoing.
China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson denied claims that President Xi Jinping and Donald Trump have had any recent calls. He stressed that there had been no consultations or negotiations between China and the US tariffs. Trump, speaking on Friday, stated he had spoken with Xi numerous times but did not specify when or what was discussed. When asked if the conversation took place after implementing his tariff plan, Trump declined to comment further, reiterating that he had spoken to Xi several times. The newly appointed Chinese ambassador to Azerbaijan has sharply criticised Washington's tariff policies, warning they harm global development and ultimately hurt American consumers. Speaking at a briefing held in Baku on Monday, the ambassador reaffirmed Beijing's commitment to multilateralism and open markets.
Speaking at the briefing, Liu Mei said excessive protectionist tariffs are blocking economic progress in developing countries,
hindering or even blocking the economic transformation and industry upgrades of developing countries.
She noted that federal states in the U.S. have filed lawsuits against Washington's tariffs, with economists warning the formulas behind the tariffs are flawed.
Federal states have jointly filed a lawsuit against the federal government on tariff policies. And dozens of U.S. economists have signed an anti-tariff declaration, pointing out that the so-called reciprocal tariff rates are calculated using erroneous and improvised formula with no basis in economic reality.
Liu Mei warned that protectionism fuels inflation and damages consumer markets.
Protectionist tariffs do not improve domestic economy. Instead, they drive up inflationary pressure, shrink consumer markets, and ultimately, the American business and consumer end up paying the price for the government's mistakes.
The ambassador also highlighted China's zero tariff measures for least developed countries.
China offers all LDC countries with diplomatic ties with China zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines, making us the first major economy to have implemented such measure.
Liu Mei stressed that China will counter tariff abuses to defend its rights and uphold international fairness.
In the face of U.S. abuse of tariffs, China rose to the occasion and took decisive countermeasures, not only to safeguard our own legitimate right and interest, but also to uphold the common interest of international community.
These statements come as tensions between Beijing and Washington over trade policies continue to escalate.
The head of the UN nuclear watchdog emphasised the importance of his team's arrival in Iran for technical talks with nuclear experts and expressed his hope that the discussions will allow the agency to monitor the country's nuclear program and ultimately prevent further conflict in the region. Speaking at the United Nations on Monday evening, Grossi called it a moment of enormous importance. Iranian officials confirmed that the technical team from the International Atomic Energy Agency had arrived on Monday in Iran to hold technical talks, including on safeguards. It follows IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi's visit to Tehran earlier this month and nuclear talks in Oman last week. In our previous bulletin, Katie Wilson discussed the Iran-US nuclear talks and how military pressure on Iran's proxies influences the negotiation process with Diogo Castro Silva, a political analyst from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He shared his view on the factors that influence the negotiation and the likelihood of Iran obtaining nuclear weapons before the negotiations conclude and the role this plays in the negotiation process.
I don't think the part of the Houthis is really the relevant piece that is moving, although it might play a role. I think there are a number of factors happening. One, on the side of the US, Donald Trump seems very keen to have an agreement in any front he can have to showcase his diplomatic skills. So he tried Gaza at first, then Ukraine, now Iran. People are talking about North Korea. So there is an attempt to do something for personal reasons. The second aspect is that on the part of Iran, I don't think what moved was the Houthis, but what happened with Israel in terms of the quasi-destruction of the Hezbollah, what happened in Gaza. So Iran felt very cornered and I think looked at also at the opportunity to engage the Trump administration in some talks with the only chip that they have, as they don't have the proxies at the same level anymore. So I think it was a combination of factors that that explain where are we now. Well, I think Iran is playing a game of being on the threshold of being a declared nuclear power rather than going full on to do so. And the reason is the regime is afraid of the consequences of declaring to be a full nuclear power. So they use that as, they use the card of being on the threshold. So they are, for example, at enrichment level 60% and not 90%, which is a small step in terms of the engineering needed, but they don't cross the line because they are afraid of consequences.
Tensions are once again flaring between Pakistan and India following a deadly incident at the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has called for immediate de-escalation, warning that the situation could worsen if not brought under control. After a cabinet meeting in Ankara on Monday, President Erdogan urged both Pakistan and India to ease tensions as quickly as possible to avoid the risk of a more serious crisis. He emphasised Turkey's concern over the recent escalation and stressed the importance of dialogue to maintain regional stability. The call for calm comes after a deadly shooting on the 22nd of April at the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, resulting in the deaths of 26 tourists and injuries to around 20 others. India has labelled the incident a terrorist attack and has placed the blame on Pakistan, further straining relations between the two nuclear-armed neighbours. And now welcome back to Baku for day 2 of the Global South NGO Forum, where voices from over 110 countries continue to unite under the theme Solidarity in Action. After a groundbreaking first day, today's discussions will dive even deeper into global challenges with key panels and collaborations shaping the future of civil society across the Global South. Our Orkan Amashov has more from the venue. Good morning, Orkan. Please tell us about the latest.
Hello, Dilek. Very good morning to you all. Yes, allow me to walk you through what happened yesterday and what's happening now. Yesterday was day 1 of this Global South NGO Forum. So institutional birth of this platform has happened already. Today, having panel discussions related to the rise of Global South, the role of NGOs in tackling some of the pressing issues facing all of us. And today, currently, the panel discussion is underway related to the sovereign futures of the countries from the Global South. I'm terribly sorry, I cannot speak very loudly because the panel discussion is currently underway, but allow me to go through a couple of key points there. So the point here is that there are some issues which are very much beyond the control of governments, and therefore NGOs actually could provide solutions. They could act as catalysts leading to that sovereign future for Global South geography. Yesterday, the platform itself was established, its working document was adopted, the leadership of the Global South NGO platform was entrusted to Azerbaijan. There will be 1-year period, interim period, during the course of which the Ramin Iskandarli, who is chairman of the board of Azerbaijan NGO platform, he will be acting as an acting Secretary General of the platform, and then the General Assembly will convene. Today's discussions are to be described as having 2 key elements. The first element is that working document, which was adopted yesterday with the acquiescence and agreement of civil society organizations from 116 countries, are being deliberated, are being elaborated on today, and the participants will be reflecting on the ways in which this platform should be improved, the ways in which its institutional arrangement should come into the being. That's going to be one element, of course. In fact, a number of civil society representatives are talking about President Aliyev's message delivered yesterday about the rise of new colonialism, and to what extent actually the concept of sovereignty is central to maintain the aspirations of the countries in this part of the region. Fundamental point here is that this is a platform for NGOs, and given that there are certain areas in relation to which the cooperation between different NGOs and their natural alacrity and elasticity, allowing them to go into the depths of the many matters, could actually provide, if not panacea, but some form of innovative solution to some of the pressing issues facing all of us, which is the climate change-related issues, the issues related to sustainable development goals and underdevelopment, and many other matters which could be deemed as being firmly within the domain of NGO work. That's all for now, Jack. And of course, naturally, throughout the day, I'll be back and I'll keep you informed about the developments taking place here at the Baku Congress Center.
Okay, thank you so much, Orkan. We'll leave you to it there. Iranian President Masud Peshkian visited Azerbaijan at the invitation of Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev on Monday. The two held meetings in various formats, and following the talks, several documents were exchanged. Aliyev and Peshkian announced their goals to raise Azerbaijani-Iranian and relations to a high level.
Iranian President Masud Peshkian was greeted by Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev in the main fixture of his visit to Azerbaijan. The honor guard greeted the Iranian president in front of the Zugulba residence, some 40 kilometers from Baku. With the formal welcoming ceremony underway, state anthems were played. The two presidents headed inside to hold their meetings, one-on-one, then in a limited, and finally a broader format. Following the talks, documents were signed and exchanged by the two presidents and ministers of the governments. One of the main topics of today's meeting was the International North-South Transport Corridor, a route connecting the Black Sea with the Persian Gulf.
This project will bring great benefits to all countries participating in this project. Azerbaijan has implemented all the necessary infrastructure projects for the operation of this transport corridor on its territory. Currently, we are simply expanding our transport capabilities and infrastructure, taking into account the increasing loads, be it seaports, railways, or road transport. We have launched large investment projects in all these directions to receive and transmit the expected large volumes of cargo.
At the press statements, Aliyev and Peshkian announced their goal is to raise Azerbaijani-Iranian interstate relations to a high level.
Borderlines are just separating houses. Neighbors keep traveling, visiting each other. In this part of the world, in this region, we share a lot of commonalities in regard to culture, religion, and various other aspects. We can use the connections and our regional markets. We believe we can deepen and promote our relationship, as my dear brother, President Ilham Aliyev, noted and instructed for the launch of strategic plan. And I believe we can promote and deepen our relationship with such a strategic plan.
Iranian president also reiterated Tehran's support for Azerbaijan's sovereignty, while the Azerbaijani president said that Baku and Tehran traditionally support each other within different international organizations.
Azerbaijan and Iran vowed to deepen economic cooperation at a business forum held on Monday at the Haydar Aliyev Center in Baku, attended by Presidents Ilham Aliyev and Masud Peshkian. President Aliyev hailed the visit as a success, highlighting the signing of a joint declaration aimed at strengthening bilateral ties. He called for greater trade, investment and joint projects, noting that economic relations had not yet matched the strength of political ties. More than 400 business representatives from both countries participated in the forum. Aliyev invited Iranian companies to contribute to major infrastructure projects in Azerbaijan. President Peshkian, in his remarks, emphasised the importance of regional cooperation, suggesting the creation of stronger transport and trade corridors linking Azerbaijan, Iran and neighbouring countries. Both leaders stressed that stronger economic and cultural ties would reinforce peace, security and prosperity across the region. The President of Iran, Masud Peshkian, has hailed the strong ties between Iran and Azerbaijan, describing the relationship as one without any sense of foreignness. Speaking during an interview with Azerbaijani state television, President Peshkian emphasised the importance of expanding bilateral cooperation across cultural, economic and infrastructure sectors. He also expressed hope for the peaceful resolution of regional disputes, including the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict. Here's more from his interview.
There's no sense of foreignness between Azerbaijan and Iran, President of Iran Masud Peshkian said in an interview with Azerbaijani television. President Peshkian has emphasized deepening bilateral relations with Azerbaijan, citing shared cultural bonds and economic potential. The head of state noted that the areas of cooperation between Iran and Azerbaijan are very broad. Iranian president also expressed hope that the disagreements between Armenia and Azerbaijan would be resolved within the framework of international law.
The first step for any matter is for everyone to be content with their own limits and boundaries, and not to covet the land or territory of another. Conflicts arise when one party desires to take possession of another's land or borders. We, like other nations, have accepted respect for the rights, sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries within the framework of international law. We hope that the disputes between Azerbaijan and Armenia will be resolved peacefully. We have always defended Azerbaijan's rights, and naturally we also respect Armenia's rights within its internationally recognized borders.
Asked how Iran views the resolution of the issue of unblocking of connections, particularly the passage from Azerbaijan proper to its Nakhchivan exclave through Armenia, the Iranian president said that the unblocking of connections in the region must take place in adherence to the territorial integrity of the countries.
At present, Iran is facilitating a route for our Azerbaijani brothers and sisters. We are developing road and rail links on our territory to enable direct access to Nakhchivan. This project is progressing rapidly and agreements have been made. There will be no obstacles in connecting Azerbaijan proper with Nakhchivan via Iranian territory. We consider Iran to be a second home for Azerbaijanis, and we will warmly welcome them whenever they enter our land.
In the interview, President Peshkian also added that the Astara-Astara and Astara-Rasht railway projects could strengthen trade relations between Iran and Azerbaijan.
Transport routes are the arteries of life. Just as veins and arteries signify life in the human body, roads, railways and highways are vital for growth and development. We are currently focusing on connecting Astara to Rasht and further developing the railway network. This will strengthen commercial ties between Iran and Azerbaijan. Additionally, Azerbaijan can serve as a transit corridor for Russia through Iran to the Persian Gulf. Likewise, Iran can serve as a transit route for Azerbaijan's goods to be exported worldwide via the Gulf. We are working rapidly on our side to complete these routes, and we look forward to finalizing agreements with our dear brother, the President of Azerbaijan, to accelerate internal and north-south transport links.
Peshkian also emphasized the deep-rooted ties between the two countries.
Afghanistan is seeing fresh signs of international interest in its investment opportunities as both Indian and Russian private sector investors signal their eagerness to engage. Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Big powers set their sights on Afghanistan, identifying investment opportunities and perspectives for economic cooperation. During a high-level meeting in Kabul, the acting foreign minister of Afghanistan told officials from India's Ministry of External Affairs that conditions in Afghanistan are now favorable for investment. He invited Indian businesses to take part in Afghanistan's rebuilding efforts. Discussions also focused on boosting trade and transit ties and on easing visa procedures for Afghan patients, students and business people. Indian officials in turn expressed interest in investing in new projects and completing earlier ones, reaffirming India's commitment to its relationship with Afghanistan. Meanwhile, in the north of the country, private sector investors from Russia visited Balkh province, where they announced plans to invest $500 million to establish a major oil extraction plant in partnership with a local Afghan company. Provincial officials pledged a full cooperation to support the project. These developments highlight a growing confidence in Afghanistan's investment landscape as the country works to strengthen its economy and build new international partnerships. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
That's the world news for the hour. Stay with us on A News for more updates throughout the day.